So being a giant accessory in and of itself, it doesn't really come with much additional accessories, but it does have this little display stand, which is static, but it has these notches, and I'll show you what they're for in a moment. And it comes with two of these gray adapters, the one there's on there now, and this other one for displaying the flight unit on either this stand or the bigger one that comes with the actual Gundam. Here's the Gundam space again, and you can see that the notch allows the flight packs stand to fit on either side of the main arm, either on this side or, if you prefer, this side. The stand is symmetric, but the recommended display arrangement, as on the box, is like so. So you have Gundam SEED Red Frame Flight Unit. And this sets up a bit of a height difference so that you can have the Gundam resting here and the flight unit resting here. And this is important for one particular function of the flight unit. So on the bottom of the flight unit, you can see that there's a handle sort of tucked away in there, and the way you get at it is you slide this piece back, and then you slide the rest of this backwards like so until the thrusters come out, and that frees up the, it'll hot lock in place, and that frees up the handle to come out of the socket. This will allow the Gundam to sort of hold onto this while it looks like the flight unit is flying. Once you get everything situated and the joints worked out, this is basically what you can expect to end up with. And this is one of the ways that the box recommends that you utilize this sort of dual display. And I gotta say, I'm personally not too convinced. Not really digging how somehow like a tiny flight pack can carry a huge Gundam and looks, well, as my girlfriend put it looks more like the Gundam is throwing it. But there you go, the option to display it like this is there. On the plus side, the tiny stand is actually really, really good at holding up the big Gundam, which is surprising because it's just a tiny single piece, but it does a pretty good job. On the flip side, though, this sort of pose does give you a really good idea of the sense of scale between the flight pack and the Gundam. The rear arms here are pretty long. If I turn back over it this way, you can see that they're almost as long as the entire sword here. One note of caution is when you're displaying this and trying to get it into like a good pose and everything, is to not have the little ends catch on anything because they are quite pointy, and if they don't break, they could catch you or poke you or stab you or poke holes and things. So that's just something to watch out for. So before we put this on the Gundam, I'm just going to show you a little bit of what the flight pack can do on its own. And the first thing you'll notice is that it's a lot spikier than any interpretation of the flight pack that I think Bandai's ever made before. I think it's really impressive that Tamashii Nations managed to work out a design for the flight pack that makes a really simple accessory have a huge presence. And it's not that big, you know, like the actual core of it is no bigger than the palm of your hand, but the fins are very, very striking. So here's the handle from before, and if we put it away, you can see underneath that there are some little panels, and they can all open up. The same panels are also on the top. If we move this section up, you can see them open up, and the same on this side. I'm not really sure what they are, and for most things you can barely notice them, but I think they're air brakes. Either way, whatever they're for, the fact that they included a little detail like that is pretty neat. Other things I can open up are these panels on the sides of the boosters down here, and these reveal the ports for you to plug the shield and the beam rifle into. And that's basically it for the little gimmicks. Everything else is the articulation, essentially. So you have this arm in the middle that lets you choose whether or not you would like to have this like over or back, or any of the stages in between. And then you have some articulation up here, side to side, backwards at 2 joints. Here you have a rotation here, and a rotation here. And down at the bottom, ball joint here. Not too much range, but mostly for up and down. And then in here you have also 2 joints. That's it bent back, like so. There's a lot of fins and stuff on the back, but none of them move, thank goodness, because I think if these did move, they'd be really easy to break, and I'd be really scared of that. But so now you can also see that there's a lot of nice detail inside of each of the fins here, especially on top, which is painted in as well. So this is really, really good looking. Now, from just the amount of like painted detail and the part separation alone, I'd say this is worth the pretty hefty price tag. But let's see here. So this is the actual attachment that will go into the Gundam, and it has a couple of joints in here which are really stiff. The idea is that they don't droop, but once you stick this in the Gundam, you have enough leverage on both sides of the joint in order to be able to pose this a little bit. Once you put the flight unit on the Gundam, this is the kind of result you can expect to get. And I'm not usually one for flashy designs, but I gotta say I was impressed by how the whole package looks. Now this is by no means necessary to complete your metal build experience, but there's so many details and all over the flight pack that there's really a lot to appreciate. And if you really want to add some more punch to your metal build, instead of, like what really makes it stand out, this is definitely something that'll give it that extra wow factor. So 5,500 yen is a little bit pricey, but for all the details and the engineering in it, I think it's actually well worth the price. Not to mention, if there is a future re-release of the Metal Build Astray, you can bet that Bandai probably won't be re-releasing the flight unit again. So if you're hesitating at all now about whether or not you should pick it up, this is probably one of those situations where it's safer to buy first and think later. And I don't usually say that about things too frequently. So that's it for this review. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.